said, I had no idea you were a performer.
When I graduated college, I went back to New York. I started trading commodities during the day. I opened up a record store.
The AI would analyze your video. It would take all of the opt-in users from the brands and automate them to your video. For a musician, it's basically like a record deal, for a songwriter. And so she was the secretary for the CEO. And I had no idea.
And she just was, and nobody knew who she was, and she just was.
She had dropped out of NYU, and basically, she was the one sort of photocopying my, bio and CD for the other divisions of the company. And then fast forward weeks later, she was opening up for me at the Cutting Room in New York City here, and she tapped me.
So you were performing. You were performing artists as well.
And so,
what year was this?
This was about 2006.
She's that. I didn't even realize. I thought she was been around for so much longer than 6 years. Wild.
Well, great impact.
Yeah, my God.
Great impact. And so, she tapped me on the shoulder. She's like, I'm opening up for you tonight on this thing. Would you come check me out? Before I come a little earlier.
You knew she was actually
I didn't even know she was a song. Really? I said I had no idea you were a performer. I met her in a suit behind the desk.
Right.
And basically, she was amazing, but the elements around her were not up to her level. And so I went up to her after the show and I said, you got huge balls. Like, she had this incredible presence and, played with all this confidence. And I said, I believe I could make you into the biggest star in the world, but we would leave everything behind. How attached you to this band? I said, well, my boyfriend's That's exactly how attached
are you?
And so it ended up that she had a bet with her father. She had 1 year from her birthday to try to make it in the music industry, or else she had to go back to NYU. And I discovered her on her birthday after the year was up.
At the end of the year. Wow.
On the
that
deadline.
Was the day. Oh my God.
This was like divine intervention.
Of course it was. Yes.
And so, and then I pitched her to my production partner who, it took some time for him to get on board because, he's used to Beyonce and people with these huge budgets. And I said, this is what it's like at the beginning. And so, luckily,
how did you get your start? How did that?
So I got my start through, I don't know if you know who Maceo Parker is.
I know. So
you do?
Maceo Parker's brother was my lawyer for the Columbia. Yeah, I knew Maceo very well.
Really?
Yes, of course. So I used to be in the music business.
You were?
Yeah. So when I was 18, I went to the University of Massachusetts, and I was a saxophonist. And so I started studying under Archie Shepp and Max Roach and all these famous jazz guys. And so when I started managing them, so during my college days, I was managing these great jazz guys all through Europe, all through the jazz festivals, North Sea Jazz Festival, all through Europe during the summer. And when I graduated college, I went back to New York. I started trading commodities during the day. I opened up a record store on Town called Corona Records Net. It's kind of it's like in the middle of the night, sort of a epiphany. I was probably a little bit crazy, but it was 1980. And so I was trying to get a master's in business. I had a degree in agriculture and in And so I moved back to New York after college, and I was getting a master's in business. I was the doorman at Studio 54.
Oh, come on.
And I opened this record store. In the middle of the night, I walked by, and it was on Park. Right, so it was just all clear. And I was managing this guy, Reverend Frank Wright, who had been sort of passed the baton by John Coltrane. When John Coltrane, right before he died, he sort of passed it on to Frank Wright. Was sort of a wild Southern, really raspy, avant-garde jazz guy who had left the States to go to Europe. In the 60s and 70s, that era of music was not really accepted in the States. Most of the musicians went to Europe. Like Archie Shepp. So anyway, he and I were working together, and in the middle of the night one day, he said, let's open a record store. Okay, great. So it was modeled after a European record store. We had listening booths, it was a coffee shop, it was an art gallery, and it was a record store. But by the time, and I was 23 years old, and by the time I had built out this gorgeous store, I did not have any money left for records. And so I put my own record collection in the store. It's like 10,000 records I collected.
Wow.
And so I ended up making it like a sort of a rare out-of-print jazz record store. And, but it turned out to be the place where all the musicians are. So every night we have people would play in the back. And then I was managing the Village Gate and the Vanguard.
Oh my goodness.
And so, and that was my life. It was kind of wild. So I was Studio 54 doorman from like midnight to 4 in the morning. I would go to Baruch from like 6 in the evening till 9 in the evening. I was trading commodities during the day, and I was I never slept. And so the record store was it never really ended up. Basically, even though I opened the doors, it just was a place where people hung out. It never really was a viable store. I don't think we sold any records. It became the hangout.
The hangout.
It became the hangout. So
you can't put a price on cool.
it was the spot. I got to hang out with some great stuff. So tell us what's Maceo's brother. He was one of the most powerful business music lawyers. He taught Columbia. And I was introduced to him, and he was trying to help me. So I had a record company called Further Records. I produced 2 or 3 records under it. And, but I'm about to tell me, go ahead with Maceo.
That's so cool. So, as a teenager, I, had my fake ID and thought I was the coolest thing.
Since you were super young, right?
Since, I was writing songs by the time I was 7. So me and my friends, little New Yorkers with our fake IDs, flirted our way past the bouncer and got in. It was general admission. And
which club?
no, this was a place called Flaunt. And so I got up to front row center. And again, I was like super young. And, Maceo's playing with the full band, the huge horn section. What, 9, 12 people is a huge thing.
It was not with James Brown.
Not with James Brown. And so he keeps looking down at me. And he pulls me up on stage. And at first I'm just like dancing around. This is great. I go back down. My friends are high-fiving me. And keeps looking at me. And it's like, again, divine intervention. God was like, you did it wrong the first time. And he pulls me back up again. Which, I've never been pulled up before or since. Okay? Happens again, and then Tyrone, the trombone player, when I hear music I love, I just start singing along. Actually, he taps his microphone in front of my mouth, and then to prove to Maceo and sing, start harmonizing. And the whole band, it's this huge band, he goes, everybody, get off the stage. Like, he literally sent everyone off the stage except the bass player. Maceo played sax, goes back on the drum, starts kicking this funky beat, and I start scatting on the stage for 20 minutes. And the crowd is going absolutely bonkers. It's my first performance ever, public performance. And at the end, he's like, what's your name, darling? Wendy Starland. It's like, Wendy Starland. And everyone goes wild. And then the bass player says, everybody, shut up. And we're like, who shuts up a roaring crowd? And he'd taken a string off his bass guitar and he coiled it up into a little ring. And he got down on one knee and he, as if he was proposing, and he puts the ring around my ring finger and says, Wendy, darling, I don't know what you're doing in this club. You're way too young to be here, but you're the gift from God, and you have to devote the rest of your life to using this gift And if you don't, you will rob the rest of us of something so special. So from this day forward, you are married to music. And he puts the bass string around my finger. I got the chills.
I got the chills. Everyone is an amazing
It
story.
was written up in all the newspapers
Oh
the
my
next
God.
day. And that was my
You
story.
were what, 14?
Yeah, it was, probably about 18.
Oh, you're right.
17 or
Right.
18.
So he's still in high school.
Oh,
Yeah.
like,
Oh my
just
God.
wild. And after that, all the clubs had read about it in the newspaper, so we got gigs everywhere.
Did you have your own band already? Or
I
you just kind of
didn't,
pull
but
one-
I
you
pulled one together
really
very
quick?
quickly.
Of course.
It was wild. And then, all these producers, my first deal was the producer of the Rolling Stones. Like, I think you're the next big thing. Let's go into the studio. We went into the Hit Factory with Gary Lyons, who did, Aerosmith, Rolling Stones, like all these things. And just was an incredible journey.
Oh my
And I
God.
always played with the best jazz musicians because they're the best musicians, period.
Yeah. No
So
doubt.
people like Oz Noy and Andy Galore and, just tons of different.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Did you end up going to college?
I went to Cornell University.
Okay. And were you playing throughout the whole?
Playing the whole time I was there. It helped me pay my rent. I mean, you can get paid really nicely in some of these places, like the fraternities and whatnot,
Right.
and the club scene. And then when I got back to the city,
What year was this? This 2000.
I'm not telling
Okay.
my.
Fine. Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
But basically, I got back to New York City after being at Cornell, and I was pursuing. So when I studied at Cornell, I was an artist of painting, like a painter and sculptor, actually. So I know the whole bronze process.
Okay, really?
And so I had a painting studio in Chelsea, and I, was also working so that during the day and selling my paintings to like entertainment lawyers at like Rubin and Dursky and all these different things to pay my rent, and then singing at night. And so I'm like you, but
Oh my God, what an amazing story.
And luckily it worked out. I got a deal.
So were you more after that?
Universal.
Were you performing? I mean, did you have many records?
I got a deal on Warner Brothers. Time Warner merged with Warner. Remember that whole merger?
Yeah, of course.
My entire division went under, so I was about to release my record like a month later after this whole process. The whole record label went under. I had to start over. I got a deal then on Universal, and I toured throughout Europe for about 3 years. And then I got to open for
What kind of music? Was it jazz?
So it was actually jazzy. I was actually on like a compilation record with like Nora Jones as an example. And
did you ever perform with Lady Gaga after? So this was before Gaga or after
before Gaga?
Before Gaga. Okay.
Before and sort of during,
Okay.
but I'd come back from tour, so I was working in the studio with her, and working just, regularly. So it became a pretty full-time gig after that. So it was amazing, but I got to, I changed my style, genre of music over time. I wanted to experiment with different things because I moved out then to California, to Los Angeles, and the rock scene there was amazing.
Totally, it was amazing. The coast with the play different.
Yeah, so I got to, open up for people like Sheryl Crow and Jack White and, some stuff with the Foo Fighters. Yeah. It was good stuff. And now I took everything I learned from, discovering and developing Lady Gaga and created an app, which is basically pop culture's first super app.
Okay.
So it's everything that you can do online. It's like if Spotify, we have the music license to all the music on the internet. So it's like if Spotify, Instagram, Amazon had a baby,
Right.
and Ticketmaster,
Right.
and then it uses AI to basically. So let's say you were hosting, something about the New York Stock Exchange. It's like social media. The AI would analyze your video to say, okay, this is the Einstein of Wall Street who's posting about New York Stock Exchange. He would take all of the opt-in users from the brand who are doing our distribution to right now the 3.9 billion people and take whichever eyeballs were interested in the New York Stock Exchange and automate them through AI to your video. So no followers, because we'll give you 250 million eyeballs on your content and then pay you 70% of all streaming and advertising revenue. So this becomes a brand new economic layer for media. It's like the monetization of media, where the discovery, curated.
It works more better than obviously with music. So
It works
for any
with
content.
any kind of content. It's any kind of content because this is such the brands use it as sort of a ad tech platform to know the customer journey and the data. And so for them, they're doing the distribution to this mass wide audience. And then those users are automated through data, like data matching system to your content. So you can imagine anything you post, if you're an influencer, if you're a musician, if you're an artist, if you're a fashion designer, whatever you are, it will analyze your content and then put the right eyeballs on it and then pay you 70% instead of 0.004 cents. Because right now, if you have a billion streams, Snoop Dogg just said he has a billion streams,
You
you
guys
less than
paid something.
$45,000.
Right.
So now, this is going to be like the Uber for media, where all of a sudden, you know, like with Uber, you got a car, you got a job. Now, if you have videos or music or photos or any kind of content, you've got a job because it provides the discovery, the eyeballs, and the monetization. I know, you got to see it.
Yeah, I have to
understand.
see it. Yeah,
But
totally.
it's basically like
And you have deals with Spotify and all these. I mean, that's how. So that
not Spotify, but with the record labels for the content for all. So basically, we're not waiting for Beyonce to upload her music. It's already preloaded onto our app.
right.
All of her music and videos. So all of a sudden, she's going to see all these royalty checks. She's going to be like, "What's this music sold thing? I'm making so much money off of it," you know.
Okay. And this is up. Is it running? I mean, it's happening.
So we're right now. It's already built, and we're
It's in
probably
beta.
gonna be,
I mean,
we're going to be launching probably the third quarter of this year.
to learn more about that. That's
Yes.
unbelievable.
It's going to be great for your podcast.
Yeah. Oh my God, I would love that.
Yeah, any of your content will have the right eyeballs on you and pay you. It'll be this brand new revenue stream for you.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
You know,
I
look,
completely
obviously,
agree.
eyeballs are the goal, right? That's what everyone needs. So the and
Nobody's
using-
used AI for it
No,
yet.
no,
So
they're
this
not.
is a brand new. This is basically, I said to myself with Lady Gaga, how can I create digital touring? You know, where basically you're, as an artist, you're opening up for bigger artists who are playing stadiums, and then you get exposure to all of these eyeballs based upon, you know, the data that's matching. Okay, this artist
best
is of
covers.
this
Yeah,
genre,
you guys.
and so this would make a good match. They have the same fan base. I did that through AI, basically, and said, instead of people physically having to go somewhere digitally, they can be spread to everywhere through our brand partners. And, you know, when you have 3.9 billion subscribers through your brand partners, you only have to be right, you know, like 1% of the time.
I have to see how that's pretty wild.
It's wild.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, that's exciting.
It's so exciting. And now look where I am.
Yeah.